You're listening to the Bloodshed Baddies. Howdy, I'm Lex.
Oh my God, country. And I'm Sam.
And we are the Bloodshed Baddies.
Howdy, baddies.
What's up? What's up?
Hope you all had a great week always. How's your weekend, Lex?
It was uneventful. How was
That's good for
yours?
you. Mine was good. It was fun. It was chill. We had like a going away hangout for one of my friends. She's moving, but I'm really like proud of her, like in a good way. She's always wanted to move. She's moving, so like good for her, but sad. And other than that, it was nice, chill, clean my house, all that kind of stuff.
Cool, cool, cool.
So, how's the weather there in good old Nash?
Freezing cold. And I actually have a snow day tomorrow because it is supposed to snow 3 to 5 inches overnight.
Oh my gosh. It's obviously not snowing here in good old Florida, but it's cold. So I'm wondering, like, what's your favorite activity to do on days like that? Like your snow day tomorrow, what are you looking forward to doing?
Well, I still have to work just from home.
Ugh.
But it will be a much lighter load from home. So I am very much always under my giant fur blanket when it's this cold. And I am hoping to start the Throne of Glass series tomorrow at some point.
Ooh, is that on the same level of Akatar?
It's by the same author. It's her first series she ever wrote.
Oh, nice. I also like to be under a blanket in cold weather, watching a movie, sipping hot cocoa, cuddling if possible. It's just like all you can do when the weather is like that.
Yeah, I hate the cold.
Cold Lexi isn't like warm Lexi.
Yeah, cold legs sucks.
Kind of short intro today, but do you want to tell us what you're talking about?
Yeah, and you're going to hate me, but it's been a little bit. Today, I am doing a
Me
missing
too.
person.
Oh, I do know though, a lot of people liked the Moira Murray and people like this. I just, I need answers, so I'm stressed.
I know, and you will not get them in this case.
Oh,
So, we are going to talk about the disappearance of Brian Shaffer.
ooh,
Brian Randall Shaffer was born on February 11th, 1979, to parents Randy and Renee. Brian also had a little brother named Derek. He grew up in Pickerington, Ohio.
hmm.
He was very, very good at tennis, and he was very, very close with his mother. His mother, Renee, was a nurse, so he decided to follow her into the medical field. And in 2004, Brian started medical school at Ohio State University.
We don't like the Buckeyes here. Sorry if you
We
do.
do not welcome the Buckeyes on this podcast.
Boo. Well, we do. We welcome the Buckeyes. We don't root for you, but we welcome you.
It's a very thin line in my book. Anyway, Ohio State is in Columbus, Ohio. And while he was there, he met Alexis, who was in his program, and the two started dating. And Brian's mom, Renee, loved Alexis.
Aw.
In March of 2006, Brian was 27 years old, and he was actually prepping for a trip to Miami with Alexis that his mother had paid for as his Christmas gift.
What a nice gift.
Yes. And also just shows like how much his mom loved her if she was like,
Oh,
here's a trip for you two to go to Miami together.
for sure.
Brian had even talked to his mother about the possibility of proposing to Alexis on this trip.
Oh,
Yeah. Unfortunately, at this time, Brian's mother was battling a very rare form of cancer. And in March of 2006, Renee lost her battle with cancer and passed away.
tragic.
Obviously, Brian took this very, very hard.
Yeah, that's very hard to lose a family member from cancer because that's a very slow process generally. And then watching them suffer, he's very close with her. I can't imagine what he went through in that situation.
That was in March of 2006. So Brian and Alexis's trip was scheduled for April 3rd. On Friday, March 31st, Alexis and Brian finished up their midterms and were ready for spring break. So they finished up school on Friday. They were supposed to leave Monday for their trip.
Okay.
Alexis got a call about a family emergency and she left to go home to deal with that. But she assured Brian, I'll be back in time for our trip on Monday. Brian went and had dinner with his dad at Outback Steakhouse. His dad said this was like a pretty emotional dinner. Outback was typically where they would take Brian's mom out to dinner. Renee loved Outback Steakhouse. So it was kind of an emotional dinner for the both of them. And Brian promised his dad that he would stop by the next day to help him with some things around the house. After dinner with his dad, Brian had plans to meet up with his friend Clint to go bar hopping to celebrate the beginning of spring break. You are in medical school, you just finished your midterms, you do not have school for a week, you have a trip in the next couple days, you are ready to go out and party.
Yes, and well deserved. Go hang out with your friends, enjoy your life. You're young, you're killing it. You just went through something emotional, you want to do something fun. I'm all for it.
So around 9:30 p.m., Clint parks his car at Brian's apartment and the two of them head to the Ugly Tuna Saloona.
I need to visit this place, even though it's in Ohio.
Yes. I think it's the best name for a place ever, the Ugly Tuna Saloona in Columbus. Around 10 p.m., Brian calls Alexis from the bar. The two of them talk for a little bit, all excited about their trip. And then at 10:30 p.m., Brian and Clint decide to head over to Short North Tavern.
Okay.
They're ready for bar hopping, right? They're not going to be at the same place for too long. So about an hour later at 11:30 p.m., they head over to Brothers Bar and Grill and they meet up with Clint's friend Meredith.
Okay.
The boys are pretty drunk by this time and they all eventually decide, let's head back to the Ugly Tuna. And Meredith, since she just met them up, she's not drunk yet. She's like, okay, I'll drive all three of us over there.
Okay.
At this point in the story, I'm going to try to explain the setup of the Ugly Tuna as it's very, very important to the rest of the story. It's very confusing, so I'm going to try to explain it the best I can, but I'm also going to we'll put pictures on Instagram so you can kind of see how the building's set up.
Okay, perfect.
The Ugly Tuna is in a building with other businesses, kind of like a mall, but it's not like a big mall. It's got a couple other businesses in it, and it's got like a courtyard in the middle.
Okay.
And the Ugly Tuna is on the second floor, and there's a parking garage attached to the Ugly Tuna. The parking garage is on the first floor, and you take an escalator up to get to the Ugly Tuna.
Okay. So you can essentially park in the parking garage, take an escalator, and the doors open, and you're in the Ugly Tuna Saloona.
The doors open to like a courtyard balcony, and the door to Ugly Tuna
Okay.
is there.
Okay.
So there is a camera on the second floor, and picture it like if the door to the Ugly Tuna is here, the camera's above it. So it can see the parking garage escalator, but you don't see the Ugly Tuna because it's the camera's right above the door.
Okay.
The building is also under construction at this time. So the camera's above the Ugly Tuna. And then there's like a service entrance next to the Ugly Tuna that leads to another part of the building. But that part of the building is not finished yet. It's under construction. So really the only place you're going right
Is
now
where that camera
is the Ugly Tuna.
Okay.
Again, kind of confusing. It does help to look at pictures. So back to our story. Brian, Clint, and Meredith are headed back to the Ugly Tuna. At 1:15 a.m., there's video surveillance that shows them coming up from the escalator from the parking garage and then going behind the camera to enter the Ugly Tuna.
Okay.
Brian is smiling and laughing. It's like very chill. You can tell they're all three buddies, just kind of like chit-chatting on the escalator and then walking. The next time Brian is seen on the camera is around 1:55 a.m. Okay. So he's standing right outside the bar. You can see him on the camera and just like barely because he's standing right outside the doors of the bar. And he's talking to two girls. And those girls are Amber and Brighton, who are also friends of Meredith and Clint.
So they all know each other.
Yeah. You can't see Clint on camera, but he said that he was out there talking too. You can't see him, but you can see Brian and the two girls.
Okay.
The girls leave. Brian says bye, and you see him presumably go back into the bar. Clint and Meredith confirmed that Brian returned to the bar. And when he went into the bar, he said, hey guys, I'm going to go talk to the band.
Okay.
Remember, this is at 1:55 a.m. that he's seen talking to these people. Goes in, says, hey, I'm going to talk to the band. At 2 a.m., the bar closes. They don't see Brian anywhere. And the Ugly Tuna is not a big bar. It's not a big bar at all. So Clint and Meredith say they were like, oh, maybe he's in the bathroom because we cannot physically see him in the bar and it's not a big bar. They go check in the bathroom. He's not in the bathroom. They both call him. They both text him. By 2:10 a.m., they don't see him. So
How
this is
terrifying
a 15-minute window
that they just saw him.
at tops, at tops. By the time he says bye to the girls, comes in, tells them he's talking to the bar, we're talking 5 minutes to 15 minutes that he's unaccounted for. So at 2:10 a.m., they're like, okay, Brian's a big boy. He probably walked home because they walked from his apartment and it's a 10-minute walk. They probably walked home. We're going to leave.
I can understand it because what he's 27 years old, like you said, that you're hoping for the best. Okay, let's go check out at home. He probably just ended up walking home from the situation. Like he's a man, he could probably hold his own. He probably just left, he got tired, whatever. I can understand it.
Yes. And I mean, he's not in this small bar. There's nowhere else in this building. Where
Yeah.
else would he be? Some reports say that Clint said he went back to Brian's apartment where he waited for 6 hours, but Brian never returned.
Okay.
The next day, Alexis is trying to get a hold of Brian, can't get a hold of Brian, and she gets a little bit worried because she's like, this is weird, right? After calling multiple times and not hearing from him, she drives back to Columbus and goes to check in on his apartment. His car is in the parking lot, and when she goes inside, his bed is still made, and there's no sign of Brian.
I would
Mind
believe it.
you, this is like the middle of the day. So, like, it doesn't mean he didn't sleep there, right?
True.
Because he could have woken up and made his bed. It sounds like this was a red flag to Alexis from what I've read. So maybe our bed was not made all the time. But either way, she starts to get worried. So around 7 p.m., she calls Brian's dad, Randy. And Randy tells Alexis that Brian never showed up to help around the house like they had decided the day before. But he wasn't really worried because he assumed it was like he just forgot because it wasn't like a big plan. It was just like they were sitting at dinner and his dad was like, oh, I could use some help around the house. And Brian was like, oh, I could stop by tomorrow and help you before my trip. But once he talks to Alexis, he's like, no, something's not right. If he didn't come to my house, if you can't get a hold of him, if he's not at his apartment, but his car's there, something's not right. So they decide to go to the police and report Brian missing. The police officer refuses to file a report for Brian.
Okay, what? You're gonna have to say that again because why?
He says, let's wait until tomorrow. If Brian doesn't show up for this flight, then we'll file the report. But he's probably just out somewhere. He'll show up for the flight. Randy is begging the police to change their mind. He's like, this is not typical of my son. He doesn't do this. He doesn't have a history of this. And the police refuse. They say no.
That's infuriating because even if he was just messing around and got caught up into something and does show up, you need to do the minimum. And the minimum of your job is to file a missing persons report, especially when the dad's sitting there saying, please, 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 this is not like my son. He knows.
And I watched on YouTube, he has a YouTube show and I think he's a podcaster. His name is Derek Levasseur, I think is how you say his last name. He does an episode on this and he's a retired police detective. And he says he doesn't think this was the right decision because even if you don't file a report, you should just like go check in and make sure that that person
Yes.
is where they need to be. And he said, yes, we don't want to waste time and resources, but filing a missing persons report is never going to like waste so many resources that it's pulling from other
No.
places. And I don't know how true that is, but he's a retired police detective. So I kind of believe that if he was in this position, he would have filed a report.
Yeah.
So the next morning is Monday morning, the day that they're supposed to leave on their trip to Miami. Everyone is kind of hoping, like, wherever Brian is, no matter what, he's going to show up to his flight. So, like, maybe this all just is a miscommunication. However, he does not show up. Basically, everybody's hope of him being okay is lost.
It would have to be.
Randy goes back to the police and they officially file a report.
Idiots.
So the police start their investigation and they pull the surveillance footage from in front of the bar, which is how we have the video footage of him coming up the escalator and how we have the video footage of him talking to those girls. They see him arrive, they see him talking to the girls, but there is no video footage of Brian ever leaving the bar.
How does that make sense?
So the police go and search the bar. They're like, let's see, there's got to be a back door, a way out, something. They go and search the bar and look for any way out that could not be detected. The only way that Brian could have left that building without being on camera was the exit that led to the part of the building that was under construction.
Ooh.
The police also checked the cell phone pings. Back in 2006, cell phone ping technology off the towers and stuff wasn't as accurate as it is today. But the last time the cell phone pinged was near the bar at 2:10 a.m. when Brian received a text from Clint that said, "Where are you?"
Oh.
After that, there was no more cell phone activity, which suggests his phone was shut off. The police then go and check the surveillance footage of surrounding businesses in the area. Columbus actually has quite a bit of CCTV in the city, so there's actually a lot of camera footage from the streets, and none of the surveillance footage of the surrounding businesses show Brian. So if Brian did leave to walk home, there is a way that he, could have taken that he didn't show up on the cameras, but he should have probably shown up on a camera of her surrounding business.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it would be hard not to if they have a lot of CCTV, like you said.
The police bring in some search dogs. They don't really come up with anything. They
Okay.
also brought in a dive team to search the Alantangi River, which is like a half a mile from Brian's apartment. And this dive team goes in and searches the river, but they do not really see anything in there of note. The case did receive a lot of media attention, and tips started pouring in about seeing Brian in different states and even different countries. But none of these tips panned out. It was like Brian disappeared out of thin air without a trace.
Which is so hard in 2006. And I know that that was a long time ago. Like you said, cell phone ping technology was different, cameras were different, there wasn't as many, but it's still 2006. It's not like it's 1940s. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yes, it's strange. And I think this is why I love missing persons cases so much and why I have just as much of an interest in this case as I do Maura Murray, because Maura Murray also 5 minute to 10 minute time of window and is just gone without a trace.
That's why
And
I
I
hate
just
them.
physically cannot comprehend how that happens.
No.
Both Clint and Meredith were questioned by the police. Meredith took a polygraph and passed. Clint refused to take a polygraph.
Clint.
So I can go both ways on this. I can be like, oh, Clint knows something, so he refused to take a polygraph. Or I could also be like, Clint wasn't involved, but knows that polygraph tests are not very accurate and doesn't want to get
True.
framed for something that he wasn't involved in because of a polygraph test.
And if they were like drinking all night, bar hopping, maybe he truly doesn't remember some parts and he's afraid that that's going to show up on the polygraph. Like, I blacked out a little bit. I don't remember. I don't want them to think that that means that I did anything to my friend.
Yeah. And although we have these like great surveillance footage and videos, like I know when I go out with friends, I'm not sure what
Oh,
time
yeah.
things happen. And I'm not saying this is for sure it, but there might be a lot of guilt around like, oh, he left and he didn't. I just assumed he was fine and he wasn't,
Very true. It's not like you're looking at your watch the whole time you're out with your friends. You don't have an
Yeah.
accurate representation of time.
Both Meredith and Clint lawyered up pretty quickly, which again, I don't think this is a bad thing just because of how much true crime and stuff that I've watched. Like, if I were to be involved in something like this and had been asked to be questioned by the police multiple times, I would probably lawyer up too, just to make sure that my stuff was covered. I
100%.
don't think it's crazy that they did this. I will say that after they lawyered up, Clint really didn't cooperate much with police afterwards. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know if it's, hey, I know something and I don't want to tell you, or if it's, I've told you over and over and over again everything I know about that night. There is literally nothing left. So I'm going to stop entertaining this.
Did Clint and Meredith leave together?
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to think in my head. Keep.
The police believe there's no reason to believe that Clint is involved at this time.
Okay.
There are a couple rumors about what happened inside the bar that night. We're going to briefly glaze them. It is confirmed that Clint and Brian had gotten into an argument a couple days before this outing. However, obviously it wasn't that bad. They were hanging out. They went
If
out.
they're
They
going
didn't
partying.
hate each other. They're seen laughing and giggling while they're going up the escalator. Like, it was not bad. There is a rumor they did get into an argument again at the bar. They were drinking heavily. Did someone bring it up? And there are two drunk guys being like, yeah, fuck you. That did happen. I don't know. There's also a rumor that Brian was flirting with one of the girls he was seen talking to, and they even exchanged numbers. However, neither of these rumors have been confirmed, but I did want to mention them because when we get into the theories here in a minute, they do play up to some people's theory.
Which makes sense.
Unfortunately, tragedy struck the Shaffer family again 2 years later. On September 14th, 2008, there was a severe storm, and Brian's dad, Randy, was cleaning up after the storm, and a tree fell on him and he died.
That's so tragic.
So within 2 years, Brian's little brother, Derek, lost his mother, his brother, and his father.
I am so sad for Brian's little brother. That is so sad.
In 2013, Brian was declared dead so that his assets could go to his brother. Police have said they have three theories, but have not shared them with the public.
Which I can understand in some aspects, but it could be helpful if maybe they shared some parts of it.
Alexis thinks that Brian is dead and that Clint knows more than he has shared.
The girlfriend.
Derek, his brother, also thinks that Clint knows more. At first, Derek actually thought that maybe Brian ran away, but the longer he's been gone, he's starting to say he's more than likely dead.
And I'm sure part of that is like you don't want to believe that your brother could go missing. You don't want that much tragedy in your life. Well, maybe he did just run away for a little bit and he'll come back. It's kind of like holding on to any hope you can in that aspect. So that's probably part of it also.
Yes. We are going to get into the theories out there. I'll talk about, just like we did with Maura Murray, the theories that are out there, what I think. You can kind of share what you think. And at the end, we can kind of
Hash it out.
guesstimate what we think happened. Like Maura Murray, I probably lean towards one, but still just don't understand. The first theory is that Brian Shaffer killed himself. There's
No.
basically no evidence that supports this theory. He was making plans up until the evening he disappeared. He had plans to go to his dad's the next day. He was leaving on a trip the day after that. He was planning to propose to Alexis. There were no indications to family that he was having suicidal thoughts.
Also, if he did, I'm sure they would find a body.
He did just lose his mom, which I think is why some people may lean towards that theory. Like you, though, where would the body be? And that was the same thing I said about Maura Murray when everybody was,
Yes.
when the theory was Maura Murray killed herself. It's the police dogs should have found a body then.
Yep. I'm saying no.
The divers that, I mean, I know you can't see a whole river and there's things that could have happened, but this one is so hard for me to believe. I think it's probably the least likely.
Agreed.
The next theory is that Brian left to start a new life. It was pretty well known that the medical field wasn't his dream. It was his mom and his dad's dream for him. He really, really wanted to be in a band. He wrote on his MySpace
Oh, my faith days.
one time that the doctor thing was just a job until he could have a band and make a record, and he wanted to move to an island or a beach.
Okay. I don't think that means that you did that though.
There's very little evidence to me that this would have been the case. Possibly. I think it's still weird that there's no indication of like Brian leaving anywhere. I think he was still close with his dad and his brother. I don't see him leaving them if he was like, yeah, dad, I'll come over tomorrow and help you out. If he was planning to leave that night, he was planning on going to that trip with Alexis and proposing to her. But the biggest point I think that is like, probably not for sure, is he had not yet received his portion of his mother's life insurance payout, which was
Mm.
$20,000. Why would you leave to go start a new life before you were about to get $20,000? That would have been like uber helpful in starting a new
Yes.
life.
I think, at least for me, obviously I don't know at all, but this theory is axed as well.
The next three theories are all about Brian meeting with foul play in different ways.
Okay.
And I think that is where my inclinations lead to. So there is a theory that Brian met with foul play and never even left the building. A lot of people believe there is another way out,
Okay.
and it's a trash chute that leads to a dumpster.
Oh, I don't like this.
Did something happen inside the bar, and whoever was involved got rid of Brian's body down the trash chute, and then it went to the dumpster, and maybe the dumpster was emptied before police started searching. Derrick Levasseur, the police detective, does say, and I kind of agree with him, that he thinks this is pretty unlikely, mainly because the ugly tuna was so small. It was a very, very small bar. So he was kind of talking about how, like, somebody would have seen, somebody
Okay.
would have heard a disagreement, something like that, that would have caused Brian to be killed that night. And the fact that it's been kept a secret for this long, there would have been too many people who would have heard or seen something, and not one person has come forward almost 20 years later
To say
to
something.
be like, hey, I was at the Ugly Tuna Saloon and there was somebody who got in a fight right at 2 a.m. I also just think that even if the trash was taken out, there might have been a chance that like the police dogs would have picked up on this.
Oh, true too.
And I just think it's very unlikely that there was somebody who could kill somebody. Again, remember this period of time is he was on cameras at 1:55 a.m. At 2 a.m. when the bar closes, he's not found. And by 2:10 is when the people who are looking for him leave. So you kill somebody and put them down a trash chute in 15 minutes.
It would be
Seems
very
like a
quick.
lot.
Yeah, you would have to have a plan of some sort in order to do that. So it does seem, yeah, there are a lot of holes. It would have to be perfected for that.
Yes. The next theory is that Clint and Meredith are involved. Meredith did pass a polygraph, but Clint refused. Soon after, they lawyered up and stopped giving interviews. And Clint did move to Tennessee shortly after.
Which is kind of sketch.
Clint has never been named a person of interest. And we also do have the video footage of him leaving the bar at 2:10.
True, with Meredith, with nothing else around him.
So, again, we have a very short window of time that something could have been done, which is just strange. Then there is the theory that Brian left out of the construction site's exit and met with foul play along the way.
Okay.
He did have a 10-minute walk home. There is a way he could have gotten home without walking past the cameras. And Columbus, especially at this time and that area where they were at, was rife with crime.
Okay. And if him
So,
and Clint did get into a little argument, maybe he was like, I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here.
exactly. That's kind of where that rumor does come back into play is, okay, I'm mad at Clint. Maybe that's why Clint and Meredith weren't super into like after he was gone for 10 minutes being like, oh, where is he? Where is he? Maybe they were like, yeah, he probably went to blow off some steam, walk home by himself. It's a 10-minute walk. We walked here. And it's very possible that he left out the construction site's exit, was a drunk guy, wasn't really paying attention to his surroundings, and somebody did take advantage of that.
Yeah.
A lot of people will argue that the construction site would have been really hard to navigate drunk, but the door out, like from the construction site out into the parking lot, was like just had like a chain on it. And it was like common for people to slip through to like just walk up to the Ugly Tuna as like a shortcut.
Okay.
So it would not be crazy that he would walk through this construction site and or even like no, that's another way out, that I maybe don't have to go walk by Clint Meredith again, right, if we're in a fight or if
Yeah.
I'm not interested in talking to them. Some people believe maybe Brian actually made it back to his apartment and maybe he met up Clint or somebody else at the apartment and something happened there. There's no sign of any like struggle or any evidence at the apartment, so I don't know about that one.
I know.
But those are the theories. I think personally, I lean towards him leaving out the construction site and something happening on the way home.
I also lean more towards that, especially with the size of the tuna place. But I was curious, did he actually talk to the band? Did they ever talk to the band, the police?
I don't see anything about that. I do think, though, because Brian had that like need and want to be in a band and those posts about, I think it's very likely that he did go talk to the band.
Yeah.
There's not much, I don't know that if they ever found the band. I just didn't see much information about if that was ever confirmed.
Like I honestly thought one of the theories, and now that you like we talked about the size of the tuna and stuff, I don't think this is a valid theory at all. But I was thinking that one of the theories would be that he did go talk to the band and something happened with like a band member because you know how like you move your music and things like that, they're big boxes. Maybe they stuffed him in a big box and that's why no one saw him leave.
I did see one theory that, but this again is like, that's why I didn't include it in here because it is like 0% substantiated. But I did see one theory that possibly Brian was talking to that girl outside and flirting with her, and her boyfriend was in the band, and her boyfriend got mad and did something. This is again all rumor. There's nothing that confirms
I
that
think
at
what's
all.
hurting that because I could get behind that. I could get behind, okay, maybe he did, and like I said, like stuffed him in a box, or like maybe someone did throw him down the chute. But the fact that you're saying it's like a very small place, no matter how drunk people are, or the workers, even the bartenders, they would have realized something was going on. You realize when people around you are fighting or like in a argument big enough where someone could like commit murder from that part.
Exactly. And the window of time, if the window of time was bigger,
Yes.
I might say like maybe they went down to that construction area and got in a fight and then like came back up. But the window of time is at the most 15 minutes, at the least 5 minutes.
Just so insane. Did the dogs go through the construction site?
Yeah.
And still, they didn't really get much though.
So I think Brian snuck out the little construction site, walked off, and didn't get far. I think maybe he got into a car and that's why the dogs can't find
Maybe
him.
somebody said, "Hey, do you need a ride?"
Yeah, he was drunk, jumped in a car with somebody. Maybe it was even somebody he knew. Maybe there's a million different things that could have happened after it. But I don't think what happened inside the ugly tuna.
This one is really hard. And then the fact that the girlfriend, Alexis, said that she thinks that Clint could be more involved or know more than what he's saying. To me, that has some like meat to it because she would know Clint. She would know their friendship. She would know, and granted, she might just be like wanting to find answers. I'm not saying he's involved whatsoever, but I do think that that's something to explore because I can't picture myself saying that about any of like my husband Brandon's friends. Like, oh, I think that they would be more involved or have more to say. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they would probably say something. I don't know. It's just a little bit of a weird comment to make by her. And again, she could just be wanting answers.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I think what gets me is that Meredith passed the polygraph test
Yeah,
because they left together. So it's not like Meredith left and then Clinton left separately.
you're right. This is a very interesting case. It's going to make my mind spin probably the rest of the evening. This is wild.
And I do think whether it is Clint and Meredith, whether it's some random person, whether it is a staff member at the Ugly Tuna, someone knows something.
Yes.
Someone knows something.
And if you do by any chance, you need to tell somebody. If you're at the Ugly Tuna at this time, 2006, and you saw an argument or you saw a drunk guy stumble out of a construction site, you thought, oh, that's nothing. It's just a drunk guy leaving the tuna. Still, that could help be helpful.
Yeah. And I just like, I think this case is even more perplexing than Maura Murray to me because there is at least some evidence in the Maura Murray case
Yes.
where I feel like there's just nothing.
No. And this is the first I'm hearing about it. Missing person one stressed me out. But this is insane. This is wild. And I can't believe we're almost at 20 years later. Nothing else has been said. That's like so stressful. No other evidence, no other eyewitness accounts that have some agency or juice to it. And like,
And I think that's why people have to keep talking about cases like
yes,
this, is because someone out there knows something. And the way to keep that at the forefront is to talk about things like this, even 20 years later.
agreed 1,000%.
This is one of those cases that if I had like if you could pick 5 cases before you die to know exactly what happened, this would be in the top for me. This is Maura Murray.
Truthfully, I think this one would be in the top for me as well because it's so mind-boggling to me. All the theories sound a little off to me. All of them.
That's none of them feel right.
You know, even the construction one, I think that's more plausible, but I feel like that's got to be it? No.
Mhm. I
So,
highly recommend going and watching Derek Levasseur's YouTube channel. It was amazing. And he's got like just really cool insight, I think, being a former police detective to kind of hit on those points.
yeah, that's awesome. We'll definitely link it in the show notes, maybe even on the Insta or something.
Yes. But that is all I have because that is all that's out there.
A good one. And like you said, keep talking about it.
And if you
Interesting.
want to go down some crazy rabbit holes with these theories, Reddit does that. But you all know I don't like to like get too hardcore into the Reddit theories because they are just random people at home on Reddit saying what they think. And there's not evidence base behind them, but they are, it is interesting the stories that get woven about this night.
Yeah, that would be. I might go look at some. I can fall down Reddit holes sometimes.
Well, thank you so much for listening. If you are not already following us on whatever you are listening to this podcast on, please give us a follow and then head on over to Instagram and now Facebook
Ooh.
and TikTok. And we on all three of those platforms, we are at Bloodshed Baddies. And we also love reviews.
So send us reviews. And yeah, our social media rockstar Lex got us now a Facebook and a TikTok. So follow us on that stuff and share that with your friends as well, please. And don't only do that, you should also send us an email or an Insta, Facebook, or can you message on TikTok?
Yes.
TikTok message with a case suggestion. We love those. We have some coming up. Our email is bloodshedbaddies@gmail.com. Big shout out to our cousin Vinny, stage name also cousin Vinny. He makes our intro music. And as always, tell friends, tell people.
Thanks for listening.
Love you, baddies.
Bye.